Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where I'm continuing the build of a brand new vehicle. I showcased it in my previous video, I showcased it on my Discord server, and now we're going to kind of work on it. I'll show you some of the steps I take when building a vehicle such as this. You may already follow some of these steps, I may have already covered them in previous videos, but regardless, we're going to still talk about them here. So as I said in the previous video, I did rip apart the back end of this truck to kind of put the rear axles here. But since this truck, the new one, let's say, is much larger, it will require some fine tuning of the microcontrollers, because previously the largest engine is inside this convoy. I forget now, I think it may be a 17 or 18 cylinder engine, maybe even more. This one is going to be more, and we're going to have to change the gearing. I do want it to really focus on towing heavy loads without losing traction, and then of course you can gear up into what you kind of call highway speeds or whatnot. So the overall body and gist of the thing are done. Of course there's going to be minor reconfiguring work. I do think that the lights here are kind of sharp. The grille matches the new GTC G1 style. So I do think overall it looks pretty good. We'll see if we do something else or not, but that gives us a good starting point. The first thing I want to do, because this thing is just a shell, there's literally nothing here, is to start off with the engine. Now this whole thing is the hood, but we're going to see if we can kind of work inside here. We'll start off with the radiator, 3x3 electric, kind of front and center. That's the most realistic. And then I'm going to make a modular engine. Now for those of you that don't know how to make a modular engine, I highly recommend my video. Now one thing about putting this there and then putting the next bit, which is found right here, the crankshaft, you'll see that it's going to actually hit into this. So I might want to place the engine right here, make it a little lower. It buys us a bit of extra space, and we can actually end up putting more things in there. Now we'll see if that works with the radiator or not, but pretty much the second thing would be to put a bunch of camshafts and see exactly how many cylinders and what kind of power we want out of this thing. Now for that benchmark, I'm going to take a look at the engine of this convoy. So I just counted, it is a 21 cylinder engine, so this is the largest engine truck I have currently, but this one we're going to put a larger engine, and we're going to even have gearing to make this thing really haul things. That is kind of the intention of this. So you could see it's a very long shaft here, and what we'll do is now put some cylinders. Now of course we have some space for them up here, so we can have 4, and then on this side we'll have, let's see, so we have 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and then down here. So that gives us a 22 cylinder engine, so it's only 1 cylinder more than the convoy. But if I do this, now we do have to be careful because here is the end of the cab. But even like this, we have 22 currently, so we could even end up with 24 and 25. So that's a 25 cylinder engine as it currently is. It's going to provide a lot of power. We'll have to do some rejigging with the systems there, and there is the clutch. So of course the clutch will now have to put power down through this and presumably back into some gears down here, but we'll worry about that after. Now of course next step, we need to have the manifold, so we'll put a bunch of manifolds. The engine does look great with manifolds like this, especially on the top, and then on the bottom we'll have to do some, at least where we connect in one place. So that gives us all the connectivity we need. The top of the engine looks great. Now we do have this, we have to worry about the radiator, so we will. I actually went ahead and put a pump like this, fluid pump, rather than the built-in one, because it should have more flow. We'll see if that actually does cool this thing off better. and we have twin smokestacks coming out of the back of the cab. So that will complete the industrial look that I'm going for with this truck. Now, one thing to keep in mind is while this is not a tutorial on how to build a modular engine, you may learn some elements from this. So as you can see here, we got our twin smokestacks, that's fine. And I did put the manifold on the engine. Now I do only have the one radiator and the one pump, so we'll hopefully see if that is enough. And other than that, now we'll put on our other parts such as the air intake and fuel. Now, would it really be one of my creations if I didn't put a supercharged engine? For those of you that know me, I do have a soft spot for supercharged engines. So here we will put an air manifold, just like this. And then we'll have a pipe that turns, and then we'll put a fluid pump with the air filter. So now it is in fact a supercharged engine, just like this, and it can sit on the top, kind of just like how the superchargers in some of the vehicles do. For the gas tank, we can use something down here, so we'll take the fuel manifold, and actually this is kind of in a good spot for that, right dead center, and it'll come down, and then we'll find a way to attach it to our fuel tanks. Now right now I did not put any fuel tanks, but since it's a big vehicle with a big engine, I feel like it does need a substantial amount of fuel tanks, and we have some space for them. I went ahead and added a few different gas tanks, so this really should give us now a decent amount of capacity, as you can see here. And what we'll do is attach them into the rest of the engine base, so then we can actually, fuel our vehicles. So we'll do this, but I do have to flip the gas tank to the top like that, because now we can use this hole to feed gas into the main engine. Just like we have this spot right there, we're gonna have this one here, and this can all attach into one main line, as you see here. And now one thing I have to be careful is this. So coming out of the clutch, I'll deal with that later. But right now we need a very specific pipe, one that can be across like this. So now, actually it should be just a T. Nope, it's a cross. We definitely want a cross. And now we want a T. And as I always say to everybody, you have to put the gas relief valve, otherwise your fuel tank will not work properly. And in addition to that, we actually do have to make somewhere where we can charge up, fuel up our tank. So that could be right here. This is a nice easy spot for the another T-piece like this, and then we can put our hose end just like that. So that's where we're going to fuel up, and then here is where we're just going to put the gas relief valve with one of these sort of port ends. So now that should be a fully functioning system that will allow the gas to properly dissipate from our system. The one area of concern that I have with all this is where exactly will my gears go, because now there's not a lot of space back here for gears, and this is all kind of the drive shaft. So I do have some space for gears, and I'll have to see how I can manage to put that. And then also the microcontrollers, because if you take a look at this, there are a decent amount of microcontrollers that we're going to have to sort of fit into this thing. Except every problem has a solution. So I have the transmission now lined up in here. It actually goes in through this, it splits off through the exhaust and then comes on down through these gearboxes and out here. So pretty much if it attaches itself into this, this can be our drive shaft, and from there we'll have power coming in and going all the way to all of the wheels. And now with all that done, I begin the transplanting of microcontrollers. As you can see, I'm plucking from various vehicles. It's going to be a bit of a Frankenstein, but Afterwards, I'll make it all work properly. But for now, just one by one, we'll start taking things and moving them into the new build. As with a lot of these trucks, the interior is very, very cramped. Don't expect a lot of space moving around, and even the key here is like in a massive gear lever 4x4 configuration, so it is not a large interior for such a large truck, but that is because we got a huge engine. And finally, all the microcontrollers are on board in the back. We're gonna see to fit them, hide them kind of within the body and stuff, but for now the platform is just there for temporary purposes. Anyways, if I fire it up, you can see that the RPS shoot right up, and we put it into gear, and of course we can now drive. Now maybe it's too fast, so I'll see to redo some of the gearing. Also, not all the wheels are making contact with the ground, so I'll have to definitely lower the suspension on the front, but it is a powerful truck, let me tell you. Of course, it flipped over there because it was quite top heavy, so now I've added some weight on the bottom, changed up the gearing, and once I throw all these microcontrollers into the body here, we'll give it a test to see how it is pulling a trailer. Sometimes I find this like placing Tetris blocks, but it is much nicer when you end up with something where the microcontrollers are a part of the body and therefore concealed. So I always try to do that and allow the design to really flourish because of it. 3 more to go, but really one thing I want to give kind of advice is future upgrades in modularization. So I tend to avoid any microcontrollers in areas that I know I'm going to be taking off. For example, the rear axle, if I want to have a regular 2-axle rear end semi, or remove this entirely, put another, change the whole rear end. I tend to avoid putting microcontrollers in places where they could be lost. So you see there's nothing back there in terms of microcontrollers. It's all here, and especially concentrated in the front end, kind of along with the various weights that you see. And there we have it. All the microcontrollers are in place. What I'm going to do now is just add weight on the bottom, especially where I want to cause the vehicle to have a very low center of gravity. So especially in the middle right here that you can see. So if I concentrate the weight there, it should be a little more stable than if it is near the outsides or outskirts of this. Granted, there is some wiggle room and playing around with weights that you may do, but I find for things like this, where it has a lot of power, making it also heavy will actually make it pull trailers much better, because it'll actually have grip for the actual cab or tractor. With a little bit of tweaking, here we are. So the colors are in, the design is in, and most of the body is black. The cab is the regular Alta colors. I could see some mistakes that are going to have to be corrected, but the general idea is there. And if we hop aboard, you'll see the inside is now completed. And if we take it for a spin, it should be a lot more stable now, even in turns. As you can see, we're not flipping over, so that's all a good sign. And there you have it. We're towing a very, very heavy load. Granted, the wheels still are slipping, but it is underway, and we are able to move something even as heavy as the brick, which is generally for testing trains. So I'd say that this heavy-duty truck is a success. I can't wait to see what other builds this brings. But thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more content. Stay tuned for more creations. And as always, happy Stormworksing, everyone.